Yes, indeed. Supriya, we'll of course keep on coming back to you, but thanks so much for bringing us that update. Well, that's the state of UP, the most important one, of course. The other states like Punjab, wherein the SAD has had a distinct majority over the Congress, and Uttarakhand is neck to neck as of now, with the Congress having a slender lead out there. Well, let's get into experts to talk about the implications on the policy going ahead and the implications on the market thereof as a result of what looks likely to be an SP-led government in the state of UP, and the implications on national politics as well. Shoma Chaudhary, Managing Editor of Tehelka, joins us right now, as does Shankar, Chief Economist and Political Strategist Director at Religare Capital Markets. Thanks so much, both of you, for joining in. Shoma, I'll come to you from where Supriya left off, really. There are two questions to this. One is whether or not the Congress would partner or ally with the SP. Two, the hindsight question is, does the Congress have any other choice but to ally with the SP in the state of UP?
You know, a lot of this is really going to depend on how the Congress understands its own game plan. And I think, at least so far, one's interactions with Rahul or those who are close to Rahul suggest that he is determined not to play the short-term game. And as impatient as the party may get with him, he clearly seems to have set his sights on a much longer game plan. He believes that his party is completely decimated in UP. And, you know, although he went in for a very high-profile campaign, I think their own sense and assessment is that this is going to be a 2-3 election cycle game, you know. So if you go by their public statements, I don't think that they're really going to ally with the SP, because the fallouts of that is probably going to be too hard for them to take, you know, both in 2014 and for this ambition of theirs to resuscitate the party. Insofar as their own performance goes, I think it's quite interesting the way commentary changes depending on how results come through, because until a couple of weeks ago, everyone was praising the Congress strategy in UP, which was to try and woo the OBC and the Dalit vote back, and to recreate, you know, of course the OBC vote was a new constituent that the Congress was trying to woo. The fact that it's gone wrong, I think, has many facets to it. Most importantly is the fact that the Congress has absolutely no organizational framework on the ground. When we were reporting on the ground, you know, people were very frustrated that there was no one to bring the voters out, there was no one manning the polling booths. And contrast that with the SP, you know, which has a very well-oiled cadre. Akhilesh has been able to really revitalize that cadre. He's given it a new kind of sheen, a self-respect. He sent out a very strong message that, you know, he would not tolerate the kind of gundagardi that they're known for. And I think that persona of Akhilesh's has revitalized the party. So the really stark difference is not, I think, that the Congress strategy was wrong, but that they had absolutely no base to go with, you know. So even their political strategy has been based on borrowed feathers. So I'm not sure that they're really going to tie up with SP if Rahul has his way. But given that Rahul has not done, you know, the miracle that was expected in UP, maybe some of the naysayers in the party will begin to have more of a say than they have had in the run-up to the elections.
Fair enough, Shoma, stay with us. You know, let's just also get a sense of how this may impact the larger issue of business and, of course, reforms, and thereby impact the economy as a whole. Shankar, come to you on this very subject. How are you looking at, you know, what a possible alliance between the SP and the Congress can do for their position at the center to push really the hard reforms that they have been trying to for a while now?
I think the results of the leads that we are seeing as of now is exactly what the market wanted and what the market was looking forward to. That of SP and coming into an alliance with the Congress. Now, the question obviously remains. There's a lot of public posturing which we have seen in the last couple of days in terms of alliances, but this is a very, very evolving and dynamic situation. We must remember that, and as they say in politics, nothing is done until the last moment. If the SP is restricted to, let's say, 160, 165, then they will have to look for an ally, and I don't think there is any opposition to that within SP itself. as the earlier speaker was saying, that the Congress would want to play a longer game, but we also need to appreciate the fact that the Congress needs SP at the center because of a lot of noisy allies raising their voices in the recent past, be it the NCTC or be it the anti-corruption bill itself, wherein the federalism was called into, and then some of these 4 or 5 chief ministers are actually taking the center head on, if you like. So I think the center would need ally like SP to be supporting it at the center. Now, in terms of policies, I think the market, it was a wishful thinking, I would say. Now, how much of that gets on the ground and how much of that gets materialized would depend on, obviously, when the Congress wants to go into the poll mode next for the 2014. If they don't want to disturb the schedule, then I think they would go ahead with a very, very prudent budget this time and move ahead with on the fiscal consolidation path, so that they can retain as much of ammunition for the next year budget, which is anyways going to be an election year.
Shoma, coming on this, the policies or the reforms that the government has been trying to push forward, with the kind of election verdict that has come out right now, and they in all probability having to join hands with the SP, if indeed, as you said, the naysayers in the Congress party might now rise and say that, hey, for stability at the center, let's bite this pill. What does this do to policy reforms? I mean, the market is looking at FDI in retail, FDI in insurance, possibly some fuel rises, none of which have been addressed by the SP whenever they've spoken about their election manifesto or the election campaign. What does this do to the reforms? Do they move ahead, or are these on the back burner for the time being?
Well, you know, I don't know whether it's more about the perception, because in pure policy terms, I don't think the SP allying with the Congress would have really helped economic reform, because as far as I understand Akhilesh's game plan, he does want to stick with the socialist ideology. You know, I've been to some of his rallies and he has strongly spoken against FDI in retail. You know, he's looking at reviving small and medium-term enterprises. He's looking at a lot of, welfare packages, free education, employment, non-employment funds. When I spoke to him, his focus was really on roads and electricity and infrastructure. It really wasn't on big industry at all, you know. And so I'm not sure that the alliance would necessarily help the kind of economic reform that you're speaking about. And ironically, Rahul Gandhi himself, in fact, is quite pro-FDI in retail and some of the other big-ticket economic reforms that you're discussing. So I don't think that, that alliance was going to really change things. I think what is going to be a big blow for the government at the center is that if perceptionally they don't do as well as they were supposed to in the states, then this parliament session is also going to be a very stormy one, and I'm not sure whether the opposition, and certainly the BJP is looking stronger than it was a couple of weeks ago. They're going to be yapping at the heels of the government much more than they already have done over the last year. So I think it's more a perception battle than really any big policy shift that was going to arise out of this election.
Jay, what's your sense? That point is well taken, but what do you think can happen over the next, if not the budget, which is too soon to talk about, then over the next 3 months? Do you think some of the reforms could find shape and make their way through, or now these are on the back burner?
See, before I answer the question, I would want to make a comment. And we recently visited 2 states. We went to the state of Andhra Pradesh and met the chief minister there with a group of investors. And he clearly he said that there has to be a distinction made between what is called populism and what is, let's say, welfare state. Now, many times, because of perception, because of what the media categorizes this as populist measures, we tend to kind of forget the lines between these two. Now, whether the Congress goes ahead in terms of taking forward policy measures and reforms after the UP election, the question seems to be very much loaded, hinting at the fact that the Congress or the UPA 2 has been held back because of XYZ parties. I think what UP election, if the Congress does well, will provide a lot of, let's say, boost in terms of confidence for the Congress leadership to have a strong set of bargaining issues when they sit together with the allies on the bargaining table. Now that is what is needed, because, for example, FDI in retail, this was not even going through the parliament. This was a decision which was taken by the cabinet, and that need not have been so much been opposed by political parties, because this was anyways not going to be voted, if you like. So this was more of an executive order. Now many of those orders and many of those policy initiatives which are different from reforms, they need to go ahead with or without opposition from the political parties. Now that resolve has to be shown very clearly and very strongly by the leadership in UPA2 and in the Congress. That can come if you are confident of your fortunes next time, or if you are confident of the people's support. And this is what we will be looking forward to in the election results.
Okay, the SP as we speak is leading in 158 seats. Pull up some of the UP companies as we head into the break. Please stay on, both of you. We'll come back in just a moment from now, to talk about more about the result impact on the markets per se and policies. But the SP is leading in 158 seats. Can we have some of the UP-based stocks to just see what's happening there? JP Associates, the last time I checked, was up close to 1%, so it's risen back from those lows. Bajaj Hindustan flat, Balrampur Chini flat, and the ADAG group as well is right now flat. So the move, the large portion of the move has happened yesterday. Today, all of these stocks are just about consolidating. Let's see if indeed the latter half of the day brings out some different movements in these stocks. But we'll, of course, keep an eye out for those. Our guests stay with us. We'll come back in just moments from now, talk more about the election impact. Okay, welcome back to Hot Stocks. Just a quick check on the markets before we get back to our guests. In fact, get in just moments from now. Dilip Padgaonkar, consulting editor of the Times of India as well. But just look at the mid-cap space. AstraZeneca Pharma is up 10% in the session. The talk of the delisting thing, and that stock is higher in trade. Titan is up close to 2.5%. A couple of other stocks like Exide and UCO Bank as well, fairly excited in the session. So a few stocks have managed to do well. AstraZeneca, incidentally, is up 12%, no less. Okay. Get in one more voice. Dilip Padgaonkar, consulting editor of the Times of India, joins in as well. Good to have you back, Dilip. And I was listening to your comments a little while back, and you were mentioning, I mean, this was a question that we posed to both our experts who are still there on the panel with us, that what happens to reforms going ahead? You seem fairly confident of moves such as an FDI in retail, or maybe even fuel price rises going through. Whereas, if you look at what Akhilesh Yadav has done all through the election campaign, is speak about populist measures, and even in some cases sounded against such reforms. What happens now with the SP ruling the roost in UP?
Well, let me reiterate once again that, you know, what does the big picture tell you? The big picture in these elections tell you that parties may be populist at election time, but these are parties which tend to be quite pragmatic when it comes to implementing policies. I mean, since I last spoke to you, the most impressive development has been the fact that the Akalis are going to form the government yet again in Punjab. Now, the Akalis again are a regional party, but this is a party which has been talking the language of development, of economic reforms, etc. And I would say this is equally true of the Samajwadi Party. They call themselves socialists, but please look at the interviews that Akhilesh has been giving the newspapers in the past 10 days. All of them tell you that the leitmotif of what he has to say is, we need development, we need to build infrastructure, etc., etc. On one question, however, there could be problems, serious problems, and that is on the question of inflation. But there, I think we'll have to wait and watch, see, because a lot of haggling will happen before Parliament meets for its budget session.
Right. Dilip, in lieu of the results that come out today, how do you think that would influence what the Congress might do in terms of making crucial announcements during the budget?
Well, on the face of it, it appears that the Congress will not again want to take risks with economic reforms. That's on the face of it. But there are within the party influential voices which say that this is the last chance, the last opportunity that the Congress has to push through these reforms, because next time around there will still be room to make certain populist choices. So I reiterate what I told you earlier. This is the last opportunity. If the Congress misses that opportunity, then I'm afraid it's going to be tough going for the Congress in the 2014 general elections.
Shoma, you second that? This budget, a bit of a make or break as far as economic reforms go, or will the Congress play safe?
Yes, that's true, because, as the general election comes closer, they will feel political pressures even more than they already are doing. And, hearing your discussion, I think the point to be made is, there may be different opinions on what kind of economic policy and reforms that we need. But if you're speaking strictly about the kind of reforms that you're talking about, it's quite ironical that, they're held up, because both the BJP and the Congress are in complete consonance, actually, in terms of their policy outlook, that these reforms should go through. The fact that the BJP has been opposing some of these reforms or been playing spoiler is only a kind of political game playing, because, their own mandate is really very pro-reform. I think what the Congress has been lacking is not the kind of political ballast that, one had hoped that this elections will give them, not one had hoped that they had hoped. But I think what they have singularly lacked in the last 2.5 years has been an ability to communicate, to take people along. I think repeatedly the BJP and its own allies have said that they feel very isolated, there's no discussion, they're kind of unilateral announcements, and because they've been on the back foot on the corruption issue, and last year because of Anna Hazare's movement, they look weaker than they really are. If you look back to 2009, they came in with a very positive mandate. They could have had their way right through. It's been a singular lack of communication and articulation, and no amount of winning in elections is going to change that. If they really want to change the wind on how the rest of their government goes in these remaining 2.5 years, I think that's the problem that they need to fix, much more than bolstering any numbers electorally.
Jay, before I go back to Mr. Padgaonkar, Jay, one question to you on what does this do for certain key sectors which the SP has been harping about all through the speech. I mean, they've talked about education. They are more mill-friendly. Say, for example, if you look at the agri space, while they are not averse to, I mean, they're obviously looking at farmer reforms, but they are also fairly practical about what some of the agri companies need to get in order to sustain the, the performance. Sugar, for example. What happens to certain key sectors in the state of UP as a result of SP coming into power?
Clearly, some of the industries which are likely to gain would be one of them. The most important would be sugar, because the last regime of Mayawati, we have seen their margins eroding thanks to almost doubling of the MSPs in the last 5 years, and that has led to higher realization to the farmers. But these sugar companies have been bleeding, if you like. Now the SP is pro-poor for sure, and and in most of their public, let's say, gatherings, they say that they would be reformists. But at the end of the day, they also need to be balanced in their view. So public posturing and political rally, they are different from when it comes to policy decision making on the table later on. And there you will see a lot of changes happening. So what I'm saying is that it will not be a cutback in the MSPs, but the quantum of increases may not be that sharp, and that will give some relief to some of these companies. In UP, what we have seen is a sheer lack of interest of some of the major corporate houses getting into the state because of whatever has happened in the last 5 years. You have mismanagement, you have non-committant government in terms of pushing forward some of the decisions which were taken earlier, and also you have a government which is not seen as investor friendly. I mean, look at the kind of meetings which the Chief Minister herself has had with the investor community in the last 5 years. So that sense of confidence may come back with the change in government, which is the critical thing. I mean, the rest of the things obviously have to be back and forth and discussed, and some meeting ground has to be met. But first of all, that ice has to be broken. That needs involvement of the government, that needs communication of the government, that is local I am talking about for the UP state itself. But the same thing applies to the union government at the center as well. They also have been holding back on many of the policy reforms, and whatever reforms they have taken almost in a non-consultative fashion. The FDI in retail itself is an example of such a big disaster. I mean, if the allies were not consulted, forget about the opposition parties being consulted.
Okay, Jay and Shoma, really nice of you to join us for this discussion. Good to have you. Look forward to have you more often on the channel. Mr. Padgalkar, a final word from you, so to say. In fact, the last couple of questions. One is, I'm giving you a hypothesis of the exit polls as they say right now, or the leads as they show right now, being the final verdict. SP leading in UP, which is a given, of course. But in Uttarakhand, the Congress having the slender majority, and the SAD ruling in Punjab. Given this result, is this, from an economic perspective, is it a good result to come out, or you would have been happier with the Congress having a slight more majority in certain areas?
Well, obviously, wherever you have stable governments, regardless of which party is in power, stability itself is a spur to economic activity. This was said, let me introduce a point here which has been bugging me all morning. When we speak about economic reforms, we almost entirely focus on the union government. The fact of the matter is that for the past 15 odd years, the locus of power, of authority, of initiative has shifted from Delhi to the state capitals. And you've got examples of several states which have created a climate that is conducive to investment. They've created a culture of economic growth. And I see this invariably happening in states which have not had that benefit so far. I mean, you look at Gujarat as one example, but that's the most obvious one. I would look at Bihar as another one. So it is for the state government to create that kind of an atmosphere. And as I said, I have very good reasons to believe that a stable government in UP with the Samajwadi will, based on the interviews that I've heard or read from Akhilesh Yadav, believe that they will make moves in order to invite investment. Now, obviously, for that, you need a good law and order situation, you need sound infrastructure, and you need, above all, a climate that is congenial to economic growth. Much the same thing has been happening in Punjab. The Akalis are doubtless going to continue with the kind of policies that they pursued, and even in tiny Goa, where it would appear that the BJP is going to come back to power, if past experience is to go by, I think someone like Manohar Parrikar as the Chief Minister would again ensure that there is much greater transparency and accountability of governance than has been the case so far, and he too is someone who is really investor friendly, without, for that matter, giving up on the party's basic position of inclusive growth, which also happens to be the case as far as the Congress is concerned. So I would go along with what an earlier speaker said, that there is a congruence of at least ideological points of view as far as economic reforms are concerned. The two main questions that remain to be asked are, one, will the Congress at the center summon the political nerve in order to push through reforms? This is point number one. And point number two, will the opposition, in order to score political brownie points, stymie this effort of the Congress?
Oh, yes. We hope the former does happen and the latter doesn't happen, Mr. Padgalkar. But it was great speaking to you. Thanks so much for taking all this time and speaking with us and giving us your view on what this election results do mean for reforms per se. Thanks so much for taking the time out. That's the view from the consulting editor of the Times of India. The markets, well, they're doing okay. 35 points higher for the Nifty, close to 115 for the Sensex, and lots of individual moves. Deepak Mohani and Vijay Bambani with us to speak about their views on the markets and stock recommendations as well. Let's now full tilt towards the markets. Deepak, what do you make of the move on the Nifty? Can it continue today? And two, any specific stocks that you would recommend?
Well, the move on the Nifty is very interesting because today, all things being equal, the market should have fallen. Asia was down. We finished weak yesterday. Markets worldwide, which were running sideways, some of them entered intermediate downtrends. So the only new factor that's come in is really the election. So I would imagine the markets are really reacting to the election results positively. But given that, the market is still in an intermediate downtrend. It has to still come out of that. And the level above which that situation changes is 54.50 for the Nifties, still some distance away, but at least maybe the decline could be capped somewhere nearabouts here. As far as the recommendations for the day are concerned, they are by a coincidence and nothing else, all pharma. There is a buy in Lupin and Dr. Reddy's and a short sale in Cipla. The short sale is purely a day trade. And the buy is Lupin and Dr. Reddy's. They could also be very good long-term investments. I suspect the pharma local majors may be on the verge of starting a really good move. They've been sort of very quiet for the last few months, but a good move could be building up now.
Vijay, what about you?
Neeraj, I would recommend a buy on Tata Motors at 276, hold that with a stop loss at 272 and expect to book profits at 282. Reliance Power, I would reinitiate a buy again after the target was fulfilled yesterday successfully. I would buy it at 136, hold it with a stop loss at 134 and expect to book profits at around 138 to 139. I would leave out Mount Everest from the recommendations because the stock has already achieved its target since I initially recommended in the morning.
Okay, gentlemen, stay on. Lots more to talk about. More about the markets, more about some specific stocks and stories coming up on the other side.